people who should not have these guns.
Dr. Hyman and Pastor Rick, thank you so much. The book is The Daniel Plan, 40 Days to a Healthier Life. You can also visit www.danielplan.com to learn more. We're going right now to some breaking news with Wolf Blitzer.
All right, Jake, thanks very much. We're expecting South African Broadcasting Television to be making a statement. There he is, Jacob Zuma, the president of South Africa, on the health of Nelson Mandela. Let's listen in. Yeah, we obviously are interested in the health of the 95-year-old former president of South Africa, and this statement is from the president of South Africa, Jacob Zuma, on South African television. Of course, there's been a lot of concern about Nelson Mandela's health, how he's doing. He's been ill now for at least a year, back and forth. He's 95 years old. He was president of South Africa after serving more than 25 years in prison because of his battle against apartheid. I think Jacob Zuma is about to speak.
Fellow South Africans, our beloved Nelson Rolihlahla Mandela, the founding president of our democratic nation, has departed. He passed on peacefully in the company of his family around 2050 on the 5th of December 2013. He is now resting. He is now at peace. Our nation has lost its greatest son. Our people have lost a father. Although we knew that this day would come, nothing can diminish our sense of a profound and enduring loss. His tireless struggle for freedom earned him the respect of the world. His humility, his compassion, and his humanity earned him their love. Our thoughts and prayers are with the Mandela family. To them, we owe a debt of gratitude. They have sacrificed much and endured much so that our people could be free. Our thoughts are with his wife, Mrs. Graça Machel, his former wife, Miss Winnie Madikizela Mandela, with his children, his grandchildren, his great-grandchildren, and the entire family. Our thoughts are with his friends, comrades, and colleagues who fought alongside Madiba over the cause of a lifetime of struggle. Our thoughts are with the South African people who today mourn the loss of the one person who, more than any other, came to embody their sense of a common nationhood. Our thoughts are with the millions of people across the world who embraced Madiba as their own. and who saw his cause as their cause. This is the moment of our deepest sorrow. Our nation has lost its greatest son. Yet, what made Nelson Mandela great was precisely what made him human. We saw in him what we seek in ourselves. And in him, we saw so much of ourselves. Fellow South Africans, Nelson Mandela brought us together, and it is together that we will bid him farewell. Our beloved Madiba will be accorded a state funeral. I have ordered that all flags of the Republic of South Africa be lowered to half-mast from tomorrow, 6 December, and to remain at half-mast until after the funeral. As we gather to pay our last respects, let us conduct ourselves with the dignity and respect that Madiba personified. Let us be mindful of his wishes and the wishes of his family. As we gather wherever we are in the country and wherever we are in the world, let us recall the values for which Madiba fought. Let us reaffirm his vision of a society in which none is exploited, oppressed, or dispossessed by another. Let us commit ourselves to strive together, sparing neither strength nor courage, to build a united, non-racial, non-sexist, democratic, and prosperous South Africa. Let us express, each in our own way, the deep gratitude we feel for a life spent in service of the people of this country and in the cause of humanity. That is indeed the moment of our deepest sorrow. Yet, it must also be the moment of our greatest determination. A determination to live as Madiba has lived, to strive as he has strived, and to not rest until we have realized his vision of a truly united South Africa, a peaceful and prosperous Africa, and a better world. We will always love you, Madiba. May your soul rest in peace. God bless Africa. Nkosi sikelele Africa. I thank you.
Tragic news for the world. South African President Jacob Zuma announcing the death of former South African president, and much more than that, the man who fought for freedom in South Africa, Nelson Mandela, who died at 95. I want to bring in Robin Curnow in Johannesburg. Robin, this has been a day that many of us have been expecting for quite some time. He's 95, he's had health problems, but truly a devastating loss, not just for the people of South Africa, but for mankind.
Absolutely. And just think, you know, this is a man, the age of 95, who has finally succumbed. And it's a man who never succumbed, who never gave up against the unrelenting apartheid machine that put him in jail for 27 years. He came out of prison and he led this country into democracy. He still continued to persevere, never giving up. Even in retirement, he kept on fighting for those causes, those charities that were so close to his heart. And there was always a sense of stubbornness and resilience about him. People always called him, you know, a stubborn old man, saying, you know, Tata, father will always be with us. And I think there is this sense now, this inevitability that he's gone, that for once he's given up, and you know, he's given up to the march of time, to the inevitable that people were expecting here in South Africa. He has been so ill. He has been very grave. We know the family has been preparing particularly for this in the last 48 hours. It's not a surprise. We know he's been on a ventilator for the last 6 months. He's had dialysis for failed kidneys. We know his heart wasn't that strong. All of these things played into a concern, but I think South Africans who see him and still feel for him as the father of their nation felt that he would never go. So I think there's going to be a lot of soul searching in this nation tonight. And it's midnight. This is a piece of news a lot of people might not hear. It's going to take a few hours before this news reaches the far corners of this country.
And Robin, what do we know about his last moments, and what exactly was the cause of death?
We haven't had any detail on the last moments. We know that he was at home and that the bedroom he was being treated in the last few months was like an intensive care unit. We know, though, that his room overlooked his garden. It didn't overlook the road where all the journalists were camped out. There was a sense that this bedroom was peaceful, even though it was a very sterile environment, and that he had 24-hour medical care, military doctors and nurses looking after him. We also know that he really has taken a turn for the worst, particularly in the last 24 to 48 hours. And in the last 2-3 weeks, we've also had indications that his body was starting to reject the antibiotics that have been treating him, particularly over the last year, for this lung infection. And it got to the point, I think the doctors have been expecting it, where his body just literally became resistant to every antibiotic, every drug that they could throw at it. I mean, they've really tried to deal with it, tried to give him some sense of peace and calm, and they've tried to ease his pain. But there came a point, and I think it was in the last 2 or 3 weeks, where there was a realization that perhaps these drugs, these antibiotics, no matter how strong they were not working. And of course, if you speak to doctors who deal with elderly people, particularly a frail man on a ventilator with failed kidneys, you know, they say that what starts to happen is that septicemia sets in and your organs slowly start to fail. So, you know, this is what we can imagine has happened over the past few weeks. There hasn't been any official updates. We've had absolutely no indication, except for, you know, a sense that things were moving ahead, and there was this inevitability coming from those close to him.
I want to bring in Wolf Blitzer here in Washington, D.C. To cover more of Mandela's death. Truly remarkable figure, Wolf. Handing it over to you.
Thank you very much, Jake. He really was an amazing leader. I spent some time with him in South Africa when he was president in 1998, and it's amazing what he did there in South Africa, despite all of the persecution he went through, the imprisonment at Robben Island, everything else he had to endure from the apartheid regime. When he was elected president, he wanted to make sure there would be no revenge, there would be a peaceful transition to democracy. He almost single-handedly avoided a civil war that could have been so brutal.